Is May 7th, 2025. The time is 9 a.m. And in attendance are Commissioners Eberline, Duncan, and Matari. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment? Hearing none. Okay, we'll go on to our first item, FY26 budget review, and this is with solid waste. And got our director, John Phillips.
Thanks, Angela. And good morning, Commissioners. John Phillips for the record. This is the Solid Waste Department's proposed FY26 budget presentation. Angela Fuzier, our Business and Finance Manager, will be walking you through today's presentation. Dave Husky, our new Operations Manager, is here and available to answer any specific questions about equipment purchases. And with that, I will turn this over to Angela.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Fuzier. So I was just going to go through our proposed budget for FY26, and as you can imagine, planning for FY26 is kind of like looking at a magic ball, trying to foresee what the costs will be, especially with so many changes coming up as far as what fuel costs might be like, what tariff impacts we may see as far as with all of our equipment parts and purchases, as well as how it may affect the costs with the vendors that we use, especially for equipment maintenance and things like that. So I thought I'd just go through it with you. First, I'll just start off with a real high-level overview. The parts that I'm going to touch on are just the parts that I have a hand in budgeting. There are a lot of things that I don't, like a lot of the personnel budget parts. Because as far as wages and stuff, that's set by you, not by me. I can't foresee what those costs will be until that's decided. So we will just kind of start. The first one, just our budget snapshot. This first slide, it shows, I'm doing a comparison of the actual FY24, amended FY25, which includes all of our capital carryovers from FY24. So it does look high because of that. And then also our FY26 request. So I'll start off with personnel. Personnel looks small because, again, this is the only part that I have a hand in is just what our seasonal budget is for seasonal personnel as well as overtime. And then our operating costs, and that's for all of our locations, Ramsey, the landfill, Prairie, our rural sites, and then capital. So I'll kind of touch on each of these. Then, of course, what I expect our revenue to be. And there is a big increase, and a big part of that is largely due to what I foresee it being with the rate changes that we had, because that started for as of the first of this year, we increased our rates, which is was very much needed to cover all the costs that we have.
And you're seeing that in FY25 with respect to? Started
in FY25.
Yep.
Part of it, the increase, but it will be all of FY26.
I understand. But you've seen the effect already?
Yes, we are seeing it.
Okay.
The only part that we're not seeing it as far as the revenue is like the part for that's on the property taxes for homeowners. We're not seeing that yet because since they charge when they do their billing, it's for the previous year. So we have not charged the new rates to homeowners yet. So that will go on the next property tax bill. Let's see here. So there's, for revenue, I'll touch on that briefly with our interfund. So the interfund, these are with solid waste being an enterprise fund, of course, we aren't funded by money that comes in from property taxes, but we do get, of course, are funded by the the solid waste fee that's on property taxes, as well as the rates collected on site through the scales. And with that, we pay the county for the services that the county provides to us, since our funds are separate from the county's budget. And that's what the interfund is for. So this outlines what we pay like to the auditor's office, human resources, the IT department, what we pay towards liability insurance, Panhandle Health District, the county gives money towards them, and part of that we do as well. Prosecutor's Civil Division, Reprographics, Treasurer's Office, more liability insurance, and Sheriff's Office for what they do with patrolling the rural sites. Prior to doing the budget, I emailed all the department heads to ask them if the amounts that I have budgeted are in line with what they should be for the services that they provide. This year, I only actually received 3 responses from all of the departments, so most of them stayed the same. The ones who reached out to me, I adjusted. One of those was HR. They reached out to me, but they said it could stay the same. Reprographics went up slightly from last year, and then also for the half of a position for the treasurer's office went up just a little bit because their wage changed. So the total interfund transfer is $935,138 for FY26. Any questions on interfund?
You said 935,000?
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? No?
Okay, keep going here. So on personnel, I'll touch on that. So on the A budget, there's no change as far as what I planned, as far as for seasonal and overtime budgets. I kept it the same. It's working. The only thing that may change at some point is if we do. I know that we kind of kicked it around to potentially raise the rate for what we're paying our seasonals. If we do that, then we'll bring that to the board. But as far as this planning, it should just stay the same. The only request as far as personnel is we are asking for 2 new positions, and that's not in these figures because it's more of with the wages, and but I'll show those. There are 2 positions that we would like to add. They're both solid waste technician positions. They're our entry level. And the reason for them is we have 2 new programs starting. One is our express area at the Ramsey transfer station, which we have staffed. And that is for household solid waste disposal, for small quantities. And that area we have it staffed by another person, and so we're getting by this year, but it's going to be stretched this summer, trying to keep that staffed. People will be kind of going back and forth between different areas to keep it covered. It is a 7-day-a-week position, so we'll have somebody there 7 days a week from approximately April through October. So we'd like to add a position for that to help cover.
I'm sorry, real quick. I want to make sure you do have someone that goes over there, but they're really filling two positions.
Yes.
Going back and forth between 2 locations.
Right.
And so this will be for next year that you can have a full-time, more or less, in these locations.
Exactly.
And that's for household drop-off in a separate location than where it currently is inside that building, largely.
Yes. Yep. We started building that last year, and actually just on May 1st, just a couple days ago, we actually opened it up, and it's getting a good response. We put it on Facebook, and we were had people standing out the entrance to, actually a lot of it was JP and Dave here, standing out there, letting the public know that it's available and directing them up onto the hill for that area. We think it's going to be really good. We're getting over 200 visits a day so far.
And it allows people to expedite their trip through the transfer station.
Exactly. They don't have to come fully on site or go in the building. They have their own, they come in the entrance and leave out actually another part of that same entrance. So they don't have to go through the scales at all.
Oh,
They
okay.
avoid the lines.
Great.
Which makes it nice for residential, but also alleviates the lines on site for commercial and those garbage trucks trying to get in and out.
Okay. Well, good idea. Thank you.
And then one other position, and this one is for the new Wolf Lodge site that we are going to start construction on here before long. And of course, we won't actually hire for this until that's ready to go. But that's another 7-day-a-week staffed rural site that we'll be starting, that we'll need staffing for. The tricky thing is that, of course, people work, for these positions, they're 5 days a week positions. They're only going to work, about 40 hours, but these sites are open and available 7 days a week. So we considered doing 3 positions, but I think with what we've got, we'll still be able to cover, as well as with the seasonals and that, to make it work without having to do too many extra positions. But the 2 should suit us well. And then the costs on that's, of course, the loaded cost. If we hired new people on at the current rate at step 3s, of course, depending on their experience, they'd be 1 or 2. So this is just kind of an estimate of what those would be. Any question on A budget?
Questions? No?
Okay. So on B, I will kind of bounce between 2 tabs for B. I broke down the B budget a little bit because so much of our budget is our fuel and hauling, as well as, of course, all the other expenses for day-to-day operations. But I broke it down on here. So the total for the B budget is $12,835,814, and that's all of it with fuel and hauling. Now, if we break that out, just fuel and hauling is $7,250,204 of our B budget. Without that, our B budget, without hauling or fuel costs, we're at $5,585,610 is what we're requesting. The total overall, for B budget increase that we're asking is 3.2%, and a lot of that is due to our contracts for hauling. A lot of them have an increase in there.
What percentage of that increase would you say is related to your contracts?
Yeah, so for fuel and hauling, 2% is that increase. What I did do, though, I'm going to go back a little bit. So I'll go to the budget worksheet and kind of go through the B budget.
Looks like it's about $100,000.
Right. In here, so the hauling contracts went up, but again, with the way that the trends of costs, I actually budgeted our fuel lower than normal. And because I'm anticipating that with some of the fuel things coming up, that they're going to go down. I was budgeting diesel fuel before at $4 per gallon is what I did for FY25, not knowing what was going to come up. And I actually, for this one, budgeted at $3.50 per gallon as an average. Of course, it can go up or down, but I think that will be fine. And so that overall, that's right here, our motor fuels and lubricants, I put it at a decrease of 9% in anticipation of fuel costs going down from before.
How did you calculate that it would go down?
Just with things that have been going on in the area and in the news, and and they have gone down from FY24 even. We were seeing some crazy increases on fuel, and not that they aren't high. They are high, but they're not as high as they were. And I think that's going to continue. Again, it's kind of a magic ball, kind of trying to anticipate what it will be.
It's called a crapshoot.
It is. It really is. And especially when that's such a big component of what we spend money on, because we have equipment running all the time. And so it's a big part of our budget.
So
Commissioner Duncan.
is this both on-road and off-road combined?
All of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so all the for our trucks, our loaders, all of our fuels, oil, grease, all the lubricants, everything for the maintenance and operation. So looking through, I gave the copy of the budget worksheet, and it shows, of course, the A budget and the B with the percentages of change. I could go through each one of these, but are there any that you have questions on these? There's a few of them that are that went up high. One is, where did it go here? Inspections and licensing, that went up high. That one was at 346%. That's going to be one that might catch your eye. That one, there's a new a fee for our Tier 1 permitting. That's for our gas emissions at the landfill. And there's an annual fee that I had to budget for that came down to us that we hadn't had to budget for before. So that's the increase on that one.
Any other questions?
That was a cherry to pick off the tree over there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's an easy one to, oh, what is that? But yes, if there's any that you have questions on where there's changes.
Yeah, you have a 12% increase with your Fighting Creek ops, and this is on the spreadsheet that says without hauling and fuel.
Yes. Where did that go? Yeah, Fighting Creek operations. A lot of that is also, we have our RO system and costs associated with that. Of course, getting it into place is all under our capital budget, but then budgeting for ongoing costs that may come up, which we haven't touched those costs yet, but once it's all in place, I did have to budget for potential ongoing costs that I didn't have to before. But let's see, there's some others too. We have our consultants for the landfill. We have a life cycle analysis and landfill survey. It was about 56,000 between those two studies coming up that also increased part of that. So we have that one, the RF.
So it sounds like these are outside operational costs that have just gone up
Right.
and that we have to account for.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what a majority of it is. There's also, yes, some of it is an increase just for cost of parts and parts that we purchase or that our vendors purchase and install for us when we have work done. Unfortunately, between the costs of their labor costs and the cost of parts going up, that's a tough one for us, and I'm constantly trying to keep the budget in line with what we're truly spending, because sometimes it is just, that's the one area where we tend to blow the budget.
Yeah.
So I tried to anticipate, to bulk it up so that hopefully we can have in place budgeted what we're truly going to use. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on B budget?
No.
Okay, you guys are making it easy on me. All right, the next one, our C budget. And of course, there's always a lot of equipment purchases, construction, things going on at solid waste. That is an area where we are constantly needing to spend money just to keep up with operations, especially at the landfill. And this year is no exception to that. We do have an equipment replacement plan in place where we have a list of all of the equipment that we have in our capital line and have it lined out, what the life expectancy is of each piece of equipment, when we can expect to replace it. And then we look at those each year. So we look at which ones are coming up for potential replacement and then actually physically go out and check each piece of equipment. What's the hours like on it? Is it really getting used the way that we thought? If it's not, is it something that we can push a year or two instead of budgeting right now? So the pieces of equipment that we do budget, they're ones that truly do need to be done to keep operations running smoothly. And this one, let's see, so we'll go to this list instead. Let's see, admin, other equipment. Actually, that one, I think I changed it. should have switched that. I changed it to less. About 13,000. I think I changed that to 5. Anyway, that's for video surveillance equipment. A lot of it we'll use carry forward for, but especially with Wolf Lodge coming on, we're going to need to put up video surveillance equipment. So that's what the admin other equipment is for. At Ramsey, we have a list here. I'll just go to this list. It's a little easier. It shows things a little better. At Ramsey, we have, well, scale deck replacement. Oh, transfer trailers. Transfer trailers for both Ramsey and Prairie. We do 2 trailers for each location each year just to keep up with our trailers. Even now with the fleet that we have, we still at times run out to where we need trailers, empty ones available to load waste into so that they can get hauled out to the landfill. So we're all constantly keeping up on that. This year, we also surplused 3 trailers this year. So that one's a matter of just keeping up on our fleet. Here, we'll go to this one. So we have transfer trailers. We have improvements for the Ramsey transfer station that include tearing down a building, which most of that we'll do the work on. We have it's like a storage building for a lot of our site maintenance. And we had it looked at this year to see if, well, do we want to just put a new roof on it? What does it need? And the contractors that came and looked at it, they were like, no, the building needs to go. So that's one of the improvements, but I only budgeted $150,000 for that. That's for a new, we call it the condo, a new condo building, as well as some improvements to admin. Majority of the funds will come from carry forward, is why I didn't budget all that much for that. We have a new forklift that we would like to, there's one that we'd like to replace that has a lot of hours on it over at Prairie. Rural site and engineering development, that's just, I added a little bit more to what I previously budgeted for the Wolf Lodge rural site, especially with an existing home on that site. There are some other things that might, where we might need additional funds to get that all ready to go. So we were asking more for that. At the landfill, we have some aerators for the misting system. The big one is a new landfill compactor for one that's aging. And this one would be for a new one. Last time we did a compactor, it was a rebuild. We kind of go back and forth, one rebuild 1 year. And then when we do another one, then we do a new, just kind of back and forth just to keep it going. And as you can imagine, new compactors, which are large pieces of equipment, are very expensive. So it's, and I have a quote for it, but I budgeted $1.4 million for the compactor. The other large one is our closure material. So as you know, with we just did our construction for E3 at the landfill. So once we start putting garbage in there, we don't want to leave the area that we're working on right now open. We have to cover that. And so, which needs a lot of cover material and engineering for the closing. So that $4 million is probably quite accurate. Of course, we had to get some quotes for the material. It's 12 acres of space that we're needing to cover. And of course, all the labor and engineering and stuff to do that. So $4 million is for that. That's the other big ask, but very necessary because we can't leave it open. And then the only other, so I gave 2 lists. I gave our capital list as well as our carry forward list, and that lists a lot of the projects and equipment that I didn't budget for because again I'm going to use carry forward funds for that I anticipate from FY25 moving forward. And that's pretty much it on capital.
All right, any questions?
Question
Please.
on your landfill compactor.
Yes.
So do you rotate with a new one and a rebuilt one?
Yes. So it's about every, we're at about every 5 years or so, 3 to 5 years for a compactor, closer to 5. A lot of them, as long as they're The tough part is you get a piece of equipment, and if it's rebuilt, which is great, we want to do that. Occasionally, you'll get a piece of equipment that, just like if you're buying a new car, sometimes you get a new car and it's fantastic, and sometimes you get something and it's not so great. And you have to, do the repairs and maintenance and stuff for that. Same with compactors. Most of them work great and they're going to last, a good 5 years. Occasionally you'll get some that are having a lot of issues that we're having to sink money into. And we find that some brands aren't created equally, or lemon, exactly. It happens with big equipment just like cars. But the thing is with an operation like the landfill or transfer stations.
You have a 10-year track record on that by chance?
What's that?
Do you have a 10-year track record?
Oh, easily.
So how would you say with the compactors?
What's that?
For the
Majority of them are
longevity?
great.
Pardon?
It's very rare that we have one that doesn't work for us the way that we intend. But we have had one that gave us some trouble.
Yeah, typically we put about 12 to 13,000 hours on a compactor before it's rebuilt, and then we'll pay to rebuild that brand new machine that we had originally purchased. We'll have that rebuilt, then we'll run it another 10 to 12,000 hours before it's ultimately replaced with a new machine. So rotating that kind of saves us money. It's about 60% of the cost of a new machine to have it rebuilt. So over time, that helps a lot. And having 3 machines in the total rotation, so whether it's 2 new ones and 1 rebuilt one at the time, or 2 rebuilds and 1
You're
new.
not gonna go down.
As it goes, then if you have 1 or 2 go down, you have another backup machine so that you can maximize that airspace. And that's really what it's all about at the landfill, is smashing the garbage as tight as you can so you can fit as much as you can in there to save space and prolong the life of the landfill for the citizens.
That's good.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, well, I guess it is a question. Is the Wolf Lodge rural site in a fire protection district?
I do not know that answer. We did solicit input from, I believe it was South Lakes Fire. I'm not sure if that's the name, but we did solicit input from them before we got approval for that site to become a rural site.
Okay.
So I believe we are in a fire district.
Okay.
But I will email you that, Leslie.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you.
Thank you. So as presented, do I have your blessing to forward this on to the auditors for their review?
I'm good.
Commissioner Eberline?
This is the first time through with this protocol. It's been 8 years since I did the last.
Oh, okay,
So
well.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, they're asking if it's okay, given what they've presented to us, solid waste, to go to the auditor and then complete out their budget
And get it done and finalized.
and come back to us, yes.
Well, I had a different idea. Why don't we cut budgets by 5% or 10% across the board and save a lot of time?
Well-
Because they're pretty accurate.
I guess that would be a question for the folks at Solid Waste, if that's something that they could do.
If I could make a comment, Brandy Falcon for the record, I just wanted to clarify that today the departments are presenting their budgets to the board just so they can be sent to my office for my review. And then starting in June, we'll be having our regular budget meetings with the board, and the board can decide to make cuts or, increases or decreases at that time after the statutory deadline of May 19th. So,
I'm fine with that.
okay.
Okay?
I'll go ahead and
That's how
send
we
it to
used
the
to do
auditor.
it in the old days. Because you guys do a great job of putting what you need together, and then we can trim things down.
Of course,
Because the taxpayers don't like making property taxes.
right. Yes. Then that's understandable. And this one, of course, this one doesn't go against the burden of the property tax as far as what comes in for property tax and having it all budgeted. This is managed by Solid Waste. And yes, of course, I look at all of the costs and try to cut as much as I can, which is why I reduced fuel and things that I foresee going down. I have a financial plan for the department that goes out, and actually I have it out about 15 years into the future, where I look at it and all of our, between our equipment replacement costs and all of that, and I'd be happy to go over it sometime if you ever want to visit. It's pretty extensive.
And I'm familiar with heavy equipment because I've been around it a lot in my life. And from your track record previously, from when I was here, you guys do a stellar job.
Thank you.
But I'll still put you under that.
Right.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, next up, item 2, FY26 budget review, and this is transit. Chad, you want to get us started here?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Chad Engel with the Transit Department for the record. So for our budget, if you look at the A budget, we are looking to completely reduce that and put all salaries and personnel on FTAs. So that would be $54,000 savings there. And then on the B budget, we are looking at a 73% reduction. So all items that we are able to move to FTA, we have done that. And only those items remaining are the ones that we can't take care of with FTA funds. So that would take our B budget to $3,000 with a change of $8,000 in reduction. And then we do not have a C budget.
I have a hunch this will be a relatively quick presentation here.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions?
What was the first tip-off that it was going to be fast?
That we cut the A budget out. I guess my only question is, why so long to get to this point, if we could do this with the grants?
Well, it was changed over to transit last year, and there was discussion of it happening last year, but it did not take place, and that was a board decision on that. So this is where we're at this point today.
And what part of your B budget is not covered, just out of curiosity?
Dorian, do you have that?
Sure. So the items that we have kept include, we've got just a small amount that we kept in seminars and professional associations to use as match towards the grants that we do have for training and the associations that we're members of. So there's $750 budgeted there. And we also have a small amount that we kept in our local meetings and meeting expenses, because FTA won't cover things like snacks if we're going to have like a 3-hour workshop or, anything like that. And then the other one we kept a small budget in, $2,000, was merit system and awards, because FTA does not cover anything relating to merit or awards for employees. So those are the 3 items that we did keep.
And that's throughout the entire system?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Not your office?
It's
Yes.
It's just the department. So
Not
Drivers?
not drivers.
no, it's
Just your office?
Just the department, correct.
Okay. Questions?
And, sorry, Brandy Falcon for the record. I think there was a small amount in equipment repair too, like $200.
Oh, you're correct.
Yeah.
Yes, because the county rents the printer equipment that we use. We kept a small amount. Let's see, $200 in that line item as well, since the county rents that equipment.
And just one other question. Since everything now has been moved largely under the grants, is there going to be any request for match?
The only amount that we kept for a request for match for just the budget was that seminars and professional associations for $750. As far as match for the grants. I don't believe we have anything that we're requesting at this time.
No, at this point in time, with the direction that the board had last year, where we were not considered for the memo that we put forth for the 200,000 just for an emergency purposes, we are not pushing that forth again this year. We will just be utilizing the in-kind match via the Kootenai Health and the tribe.
Okay.
And legal.
We could utilize the legal time that they are tracking. That is correct. We could utilize that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Unless there is an objection, you can proceed to give your information to the auditor's office.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, item 3, FY26 budget review, juvenile detention. Director Sheffield.
Good morning, Commissioners. Eric Sheffield, Juvenile Detention. Here to talk about our FY26 budget. So we'll start with A. Don't really have any significant changes to A other than just as a reminder, in FY24 we did eliminate one JDO position, and so we're going to move forward with the savings in that that position being eliminated. And we did move our full-time nurse into 2 part-time positions. So we're seeing some benefit savings with that move as well.
Did you get those positions hired?
Thanks for asking. Yes, we got one of the part-time positions filled. We've had probably 1,000 inquiries on the online application database and no other applicants. So we're kind of struggling getting that second position filled. Got some hopes for the future.
What's the problem?
Been talking a lot with HR regarding that position. There was a wage study. The wage study came back and said, hey, we think that wage is fine for that type of nursing position. We thought we were going to kind of hit a special niche here with a non-benefited position, maybe a nurse who is semi-retired or retired, wants to come back, into the game. That hasn't happened yet. When you look at the job listings for nurses, they typically start about $10 an hour more than, what we're starting at. If a nurse, for example, wanted to go to work for Kootenai Health or, another hospital. So, we've just got to be patient, find the right person. We do have a half-timer right now. I'd really like to get that other position filled. So, like I said, we're working with HR to strategize where to advertise, universities, colleges, nursing programs. So we're doing what we can to get the exposure out there.
But you said you had about 1,000 inquiries?
Yeah, when we go on to, I can't remember the name of that system. NeoGov, thank you. To kind of see what's happening. And it looks like we've had about, 1,000 people look at it. I don't really know what that means, is that, 100 people going back and looking again, or, just people thumbing through. But, it is an indication that, we're getting a fair amount of traffic, just no interest.
But 0 applications?
0. We had one application, and it's been working out really well for us. This person's working out really well for us, but one application since we've...
Oh, so that's your hire?
Yeah.
0 applications for the second position?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and maybe I'll come back before the board with some, ideas on how to move forward on that. But there's some things in the works, so we'll see how that works out. I feel fairly optimistic we'll get that filled in the next few months.
Yeah.
You try part-time and volunteers and all those kind of things?
Excuse me?
Have you tried volunteers and part-timers?
It's a matter of exposure, you know, and I think it's advertised fairly broadly. You know, we're looking at trying to advertise a little bit better, try to hit some more markets, but there are a lot of nursing positions out there open. There's a, you know, the industry's changing. I found there's a lot of contract nursing right now. So agencies who basically nurses apply with and kind of wait for jobs to come to them, and then they selectively pick what suits them the best. And those agencies typically are hiring at about the $40 an hour mark, you know, and we're advertising right now. I'm advertising the full range, which is 32 to 39.
How many people have you got to come on?
Just the one. You know, we've been advertising the 2 part-time positions for some time now, a couple of months.
Well, there's, because whatever it is, the pay scale, you know, whatever it is that's holding this thing up, you might want to look at somebody that would like to do some pro bono work. You know, because there's lots of people out there that would just like to get their hands onto it, or maybe they, you know, they had a kid that they had a long time ago and they turned them around and they felt good about it. And
sure, we think the right person's out there.
I think there is too.
You know, I talked to the coroner next door, you know, doctor, to, you know, get a feel for the market. He felt fairly optimistic that, you know, there was a pretty decent part-time, you know, nursing market out there. So maybe it's timing, whatever it is. You know, we're working with HR on a pretty regular basis to try to get that position filled.
Yeah. So I was looking at the mid-June, so whatever that third week of June HR meeting, we can address it then if you have not found anyone by then.
Okay, yeah, will do. I'll give you guys a report.
So I think Lexi
Thanks for
wants to
asking,
say something.
appreciate it.
Yep.
All right.
All right, moving on, thank you. Any more questions on that one?
But
Oh,
Lexi,
Lexi, did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
just a quick addition, Lexi Pack for the record. As Eric mentioned, I think we're just looking for a really specialized individual for this position. It's a really niche kind of request. We're asking for a part-time nurse, as we've discussed, probably someone earlier in their career or someone later in their career. Just looking for a transition. So I know he has been working with our recruiter pretty heavily, but we do see this one being a little bit more difficult position to fill. That's kind of why we did go with a part-time route as well, to see if that attracted any applicants. And so far, it's been pretty difficult, but as Eric mentioned, we are going to reach out to some universities as we're approaching graduation time and see if we can get any interest that way as well.
Okay.
Hang in there.
Ready for B?
Yes.
Okay, B. We're looking at about a 5.69% decrease in our B budget for FY26. I will say that a significant chunk of that is money that we budgeted in FY25 for our PREA audit, which was $6,500, and we do every 2 years we do first aid CPR certifications for our staff. That's $1,300. So there's still about an actual savings of, you know, comes down to about $1,500 after those. So don't have anything, you know, specific to add on the B budget. So it's basically flat with some savings. In the end, if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to respond to those.
Questions? No? Okay.
Okay.
Let's move on
No
to C.
No capital requests for FY26. Say in large part, I just want to thank our maintenance department for doing such a great job of preventative maintenance at the facility. They're quite skilled and they save a lot of money in terms of contracting out. They do a lot of work themselves. They've done a lot of refurbishing. It's a 30-year-old building, but we always get positive feedback on how clean and organized and put together it is. So I want to put that plug in for our maintenance crew for having a large part of that success.
Any questions? No, without objection, you can proceed to the next step.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, next up, item 4, FY26 budget review with our information technology.
Morning, Commissioners. Doing well. I have just a couple slides. After I thought about it, I didn't want you guys to have to strain your necks looking at the board that I've asked Jonathan to put up on the screen. So there's only 3.
All right, James, you want to make sure that the, there you go.
Our budget, I think, is fairly simple this year. We'll see if you agree. Overall, our budget from last year is down $168,000, 7.7%. Capital requests are down $242,000 from last year. And operating costs are up about $73,000, and that's between operating expenses and a new category from the auditors, SBITA software lease, which basically for us will operate as an operating expense. So I'll just go over a quick overview, and then we can go into some detail if you want, and we can ask questions obviously as well. So next one. Next one is our B budget, and the main changes for our B budget is the on-base project is over. I'm happy to announce that we've migrated all departments off paperclip. We'll be shutting that server down, and everybody is now on base. And Carrie and her team are now focusing on just automating manual processes in different departments. They've already started. I'm very proud of the work her and her team have done, and she's here if you want to ask any questions about their accomplishments so far or what their plans are. But that's where that cost is coming from. It is an increase over paperclip, but the OnBase does a heck of a lot more than paperclip did. And also dual factor authentication from a company called Duo. I'm at the risk of telling you something you already know. Currently, when you log onto your computer, you use something you know your password. We want to add something you have, either your cell phone or a dongle, which would send a code. I'm sure you've done it with your banks when you've logged into your account. So research we've done shows that that is one of the main ways to fight cyber crimes and being held hostage by a
ransomware.
Ransomware, yeah. So that's a $61,700 annual cost. The first year, there's also a $12,000 installation cost that goes along with that. But those are the two main expenses in our B budget. As far as C budget, we've only have one capital request this year. I've asked Grant to say a few words about what that request is.
Yeah, the capital request would be for a replacement of the automated door system on the admin campus right now. We're putting in an automated door system, the badge cards, over in the new Justice expansion that's being built. The rest of the campus here is a different system. The reason those are different is because the system we're putting in at the expansion is the same one that we have at the jail, knowing that we would have deputies coming down and doing prisoner transports and stuff. Not to mention, it's a far superior system to what we currently have on campus right now. So that system is going in for intercompatibility with the jail system. This proposal is to bring the rest of the admin campus onto that same system so that everything's the same everywhere. Currently, all of our doors, as you're aware, have the little scramble pads. That's a 4-digit number that you press and you get in, well, you have 400 employees, you have one of those, it's not very secure. You can pretty much guess a number. That combined with a lot of areas are using manual, automated locks. Those aren't part of this scope, but it would give it would eventually give us the ability to convert those if desired. So that project is coming in around $78,000. What I would propose, if the board would agree with it, is we have some project savings that have accumulated over the last few years. We roll them forward every year, basically, for when something like this comes along. What I'm saying is we basically have the money in our budget already, just not allocated towards this project. I would propose we use the money that's sitting there and get it spent versus taking this forward and putting more money in that bucket right now.
Questions?
No, I mean, I would be happy to see a quote come forward on that project.
And basically what this is doing is standardizing all of the campuses with one prox card. Then
Exactly.
you set up access levels for people.
We would still operate two head-end systems. The sheriff's department would operate one, we'd operate one here, but the cards could be programmed on both systems.
Yep.
That way we don't have anyone here operating and giving access to jail facility doors and stuff like that, so.
Yeah.
But the good news is, when a deputy comes from the sheriff's department down to holding down here, they won't be fumbling around trying to figure out which card for which system. It would all be one throughout the system. It'll also be good for departments in the justice expansion going, like for prosecutors, for example, they'll be badging in with a prox card to the new building, and as they come over to the old courthouse for things, they'd still be going towards an old key fob or scramble pad possibly.
So it'll update both buildings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll update everything on this campus that currently uses the scramble pad or the few people who have an actual key fob to buzz in.
Okay. Any other questions?
If the board wanted to use the funding that's already allocated in IT's FY25 budget, like Grant had mentioned, we would probably want to remove this from the FY26 budget and then fund it right now as a mid-year FY25 project. Is that something that is that what you were meaning, Grant?
Yeah.
Okay, so if the board wanted to do that, you could give that direction.
Why would we go that direction?
Grant suggested it because he has the money in his budget right now. So I just wanted to explain how that would work.
So money is meant to be spent.
It's up to you.
We would take, it, like Brandy said, we would take it out of the 26 budget and spend it now since we have the money from savings on other projects. We could do it now with your approval.
I agree that this is a good thing to do because it is, we should all be able to get into the doors and just making it work. That'd be a good idea. I'm not against it.
Okay. Would, it sounds like that's the direction the board would like to pursue, is us doing it now. Should I bring that to a status update or straight to a business meeting, or opinion as far as?
Depends.
Change that protocol. Can we change any of that stuff?
What do you mean?
Well, if we're going to do it right now, can we do that? Because we're working on a different program right now.
Well, they just would pull it out of their budget and then bring it back to us with a quote for a business meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you have, something odd that you want to talk about beforehand, but I think that would be.
No, I have a
fine.
quote in hand already, so I'll get that scheduled for the next available business meeting.
Yeah, and just what funds it'll come out of.
Okay.
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 Right, and we're not asking for any new staff members this year, but that's the general overview of the IT budget for this year.
Good.
So does this mean your total savings will go up by roughly $72,000 on your bottom line here? Because of this,
Well,
because
it's,
we,
let's see.
Something like
because
that.
we
Or the
moved the C budget item, 78,000.
Yes. They're saying if we pay for the project now, it wouldn't be in this number. So
Right.
this would actually go up.
It would increase our
Would
savings
increase the savings.
from last year, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, unless there's objection, you have permission to move on to the next step here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it.
So, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5, FY26 budget review with community development. Director Callahan, do you want to get us started here?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. David Callahan, Community Development Director. With me are Reba and Craig. They know all the details of our budget. I wanted to lead off with the only thing in our budget that is actually a new request, otherwise we are flat, if you will. The major request I'm asking for is, and please remember as a takeaway, this is a 2-year request for $300,000 for a comp plan update, which would include a Parks Master Plan. About $92,000 of the $300,000 would be the Parks Master Plan. The reason, I'll circle back around and talk about why I think it's critical now to work to continue to do our comp plan update. But the reason for combining the Parks Master Plan with this effort is there's an economy of means. We get one set of consultants that are skilled in both long-range land use planning and Parks Master Planning. They can handle it at the same time. They can have a number of meetings reaching out to the public, doing both things. And so we have savings by having one consultant, one process, one time frame, and efficiencies. The other, if you'll bear with me for a moment, I'll mention that I think it's frankly embarrassing for a community this large to not have a Parks Master Plan. I would be so bold as to say that I believe a part of the reason the open space bond failure occurred is we didn't have a way to show the public how we would use the money. This would fix that. But more importantly, it's just good planning practice for every community in the country to have a long-range vision of how recreation should work. So that's the reason for combining the two. The reason for going forward with a comprehensive plan finishing out of a update is that we've just done a major effort of changing all the data in our comp plan. We'll be circling back around soon to actually have you officially adopt that as an update to the current plan. But these things go hand in glove. Now is the perfect time to take the data that we have and express the meaning of that data to the public, engage the public, get their understanding of their concerns and their aspirations so that our comprehensive plan can truly reflect how the community wants to grow, and then so that you as a board can have a better idea of how to balance cost of growth against concerns and aspirations of the community. It's fair to say at the moment our current comprehensive plan misses the mark on all of those things. So that to me is why it's useful to do this now. Again, I think you could split the $300,000 for fiscal year 26, make it $150,000. I'm fairly certain our consultants can't gear up to do everything in 1 year. I'm fairly certain this is a 2-year process. I know that from having done this sort of thing with the city of Dallas, Boulder County, some other places I won't bore you, but I've been involved in comprehensive planning all of my adult life. So I believe the numbers that we've talked about are fair and reasonable. I have also sent you by email a breakdown our consultant has done that shows the literal breakout of how the work would be done for the Parks Master Plan and cost, and then you will soon have the same thing, if you'd like it, for the comprehensive plan work. So that's really the major thing I wanted to talk about. I'll defer to Reba and Craig for any detailed questions you have about the rest of our budget.
Any questions on what Director Callahan said? No questions? Okay. We'll move into the numbers.
Okay. Good morning, Reba Gritness, Community Development, for the record. Our budget is, other than the consultants, is very tight. We have a budget going down. We're eliminating a position, also decreasing our overtime. So that's we decreased overtime 5,000, and then our full-time employee went down 14,478, deleting that position. Revenue, it's been a recommendation that we increase our fees 5% to try to get closer to cut the gap between our expenses and our revenue.
Yeah, and if I could interject.
Yes.
Craig Davidson for the record. Currently, we're at about 50% revenue, which is baseline where we expect to be at this time of the year. Expenditures are at 51% for about a $146,000 difference. Third quarter is huge for us. Obviously, revenues coming from building division. 82% of our revenues come from building division itself, 17 from planning. So in working with Brandy and going forward, that's probably we're going to raise our fees by 5% to meet those gaps and also some of the other things. So back to Reba, unless you have questions.
Questions?
That's pretty much it for the A budget. B budget is, other than the consultant fee of $300,000, would have been down. 16 of our line items, GL codes, we have decreased. 15 stayed the same, and 4 went up minimally. One was $200, one was $1,300 for fleet repair, $200 for course materials. So just minor increase, a little bit more for gas, just with the uncertainty with the economy. So all in all, other than the consultant fee, we would have been looking really good and not had an increase in our budget.
But that's something that's required by statute, isn't it? I mean, aren't we supposed to be doing this?
It is in fact state law that you must have a comprehensive plan.
It's just a matter of how good it is.
And how frequent.
Yeah. And then with respect to the fuel expenses, we have solid waste that actually reduced there. So I would almost argue that I would reduce it a little bit because I tend to agree with their assessment that fuel prices are going to go down.
Last few days seem to indicate that on a national level.
Yeah.
At the time we did this.
If you can trust that.
And then the only other thing is in our fee structure, have we built in the comp plan? It's a requirement?
No, we have not, but we certainly could. We just have to find some ratio.
Yeah.
And appropriate it across all the work.
Well, it would be every 10 years.
Right.
So you just amortize that expense over 10 years.
Your point's well made and well taken. 10 years is a typical time frame to update comp plans.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Just a couple on the drone. You don't have any drones right now?
No.
We do not.
No.
Okay. And what training is involved?
You have to get certified with the FAA for qualification. It's a test, basically. It's self-course and stuff like that. And we would want to do that. Also, to do it, the whole reason for the program would be to mitigate risk to our inspectors, cut down time on some inspections. Now, House Bill 266, some of the other ones with the virtual inspections and things like that. Looking to economize some of our force. Our inspectors crawling on roofs, cell towers to see the changeouts, things like that. We use binoculars the best we can, but it would just afford more rapid, efficient inspections with mitigating risk. We actually have a couple of our inspectors who have them on their own and they're certified, but needless to say, I'm kind of piloting the program, no pun intended, but just I think the cost benefit and the return on it for mitigation of risk itself is huge. Additionally, with site disturbances and things like that, it'll take a planner, you got to walk a 10-acre parcel, 2.5 to 4 hours. Something like this could take 30 minutes, and we've got all the data we need for high-risk sites and things like that. So anyhow, And I expect more later on about this, but if you want an official presentation, I can certainly give it to you in one of the business meetings.
No.
I'm just curious, are there other locations, other jurisdictions that have done this? And
Spokane has, yes.
And have they been able to document any kind of savings?
Definitely in terms of cost savings for time and risk mitigation as well. And I can get those statistics for you.
And risk mitigation meaning what? Climbing a tower so that you don't have to worry about somebody falling or
Fall off the ladder.
And in larger cities, they have building inspections on exterior for damage and things like that. They're not having to use scaffolding, roping, or anything like that, so they can fly the drone, see the damage, make the assessment, photograph it, video it, and then go on with whatever's necessary for the permitting process.
Okay.
So,
Also, there would not be any additional cost for training in the fiscal year 2026, because we probably have savings this year that we could get them certified with this year's funds.
I'm just curious, are there any grants out there for this kind of stuff?
you know, I didn't look into that, but I will.
Okay.
Commissioners, I wanted to discuss the revenues just a little bit. And Craig, you can jump in here if I misspeak, okay? So right now, their revenues are budgeted in line with trend, what we're seeing that they've collected over the last couple of years in each line item, as well as looking at how much they've collected this current year to date. And so there are a couple of revenues that we have decreased a little bit just because they are slower. Some that we've increased because they're collecting more than we anticipated. In discussing with the department, we haven't increased their budgeted revenues to take into account any fee increases, because I know there was some concerns about a potential recession and maybe the effects that would have on revenues. So I guess I'm looking for board direction, your thoughts on potentially budgeting to capture potential fee increases or leaving revenues budgeted in line with current trend.
Thoughts?
Even in a recession, I just don't see Kootenai County getting that affected, I suppose. So I'd probably rather budget more in line with, and again, the expenses would just be less in some areas if, you know, if we didn't see the volume, so.
I think you should include the fees, the increase in your budget. Plan for that. I think today's paper had the real estate market is not affected at all in Kootenai County. It's strong. And so let's work with what we know and not what we think might happen.
All right, so I'm going to have community development then kind of tell me which line items to increase by how much, what percentage, and we'll make those changes. And then, don't you guys have a capital request, Reba?
Yes.
Okay.
We do have one.
Yes. Before we get there, I'll go ahead and drop our fuel down to what it was last year. It went up, we increased it 1,700. So it might have been a little bit too much. So I'll decrease to what we had last year. And if something goes crazy, we'll come see you. Okay, we have one capital request of a new vehicle, SUV at $32,000 to replace one of our older vehicles, or just the vehicles that are on their last leg that we're not going to pay to repair. We'll just keep driving them until the wheels fall off. Is that what we do?
And just so you know, we've made an internal adjustment. We've shifted the vehicles for the higher mileage ones to the lesser operated, like planning division and code compliance division, and we've redistributed the lesser miles one back to the inspector. So we're managing that. So that's not a critical issue. With the vehicle we obtained from Parks and Waterways, which is in excellent shape, it was a good acquisition, and we can use that for several years to come.
Okay, and fleet management's kind of signed off on this one?
Yes, all the information's been sent in.
Okay.
So with these vehicles, are we going to get what we need, David?
Yes, sir.
Because having black and white units that are a magnet for
Understood. We're long past that.
good.
And yes, with one new vehicle, we'd be where we need to be.
And so you would no longer have black and white units.
Nor would we have wheels falling off.
Well, A wheel can fall off anytime, any place.
understand.
And Commissioner Eberline, what they're doing for the fleet, for the black and whites anymore, it's basically a wrap system. We do have one that we acquired from the sheriff's department that was a lower mileage one that's gonna last us several years. They take that portion of the wrap off, so it's no longer a black and white unit. You know what you're looking at, you'll still see it's a law enforcement vehicle, but it's not that,
But it's not
target
black and
like you're stating.
Yeah, because we don't need to have targets driving down the highway.
Agreed.
They still have ballistic doors in them, so it's kinda nice for
Well,
compliance guys.
Well, would you rather have a Corvette then?
I'll leave that for another discussion.
All right, well, without objection up here, you can proceed to the next step here.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Want to take a break?
Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll take a 5-minute break here. It's 10:10. Okay, it's 10:15 and we're back now. Next item up is 6, FY26 budget review with Building and Grounds, and we have Director Voller here.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're going to go ahead and start with JDC budget. You did hear from JDC earlier, but their maintenance budget comes as part of our budget subset. So I have Gary Hayes this morning, and we'll go ahead and start with him, and he will present his summary first, and then I will jump in on the rest of the Building and Grounds budgets.
So, good morning, Gary Hayes here for the record. I'm here to present the JDC maintenance FY26 budget. My requests follow a 2-year trend with savings of about 16% to my overall B budget. This savings was created from training provided in FY25 for detention and high security locks to be able to repair and refurbish those in-house. Yeah, looking forward to saving a little money in that department. So my mission at JDC is to provide safety and security at the highest level, and I feel comfortable with this budget proposal, and will do my best to achieve this success here at JDC.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
Okay, so for the Buildings and Ground budget, I'm going to start with the B budget. Essentially, we're presenting a relatively flat budget. We have a savings of about $3,000. Being this is my first budget cycle, I took a lot of time looking at our expenses and what we've done over the last 2 years and trends and things. Was able to find some areas that I feel like we budgeted a little bit high. The first being janitorial supplies. That had a pretty significant increase in FY25, which was for the addition of the Justice Building. We're probably a little bit premature with that. However, we will be putting in some orders as we bring that online to stock that building out of that budget. So that'll will probably be about right, but I still think we're a little bit high there. So I was able to decrease that budget a little bit. You'll see in the non-capital expenses, we have an increase. That is for a request actually from HR and Jonathan to take the training room 2 and take out the oval conference table and put in training tables almost similar to a layout such as you see here, so that that would better serve their trainings when they do onboarding with that. So I went ahead and put that into my budget. There's about $2,000 in there to put in tables and whiteboards. And I do have chairs that we can use for that, so we don't have chairs included in that budget because I currently have some in inventory.
Okay, question on
and then
that?
the larger portion of that is we are able to obtain for F-150. Yeah.
Sorry, I just, did you check with community development who uses that room weekly as well? Will the new setup be conducive to them?
I did not. That came from Sylvia and Jonathan.
Okay.
I can check with them on that. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, noted on that. Yes. Okay, so and then the larger portion is we were able to inherit a 2016 and trickle down F-150 from the Sheriff's Department. And so in order to make that work for us, we would like to put a flatbed with a dump hoist on it and airbags. And so that would replace an early 90s Toyota that we currently use. That would kind of be our grass catching vehicle that we take to the dump and dump the grass and, you know, that kind of thing. So that's the justification for that. Under 8071 medical supplies, it came to my attention that somebody used to manage the AEDs and Narcan around the county, and that has not been done in 5 years. And all of the batteries and pads are currently expired on those. And so we went around and did an inventory of all of the AEDs. And so we do need to replace the pads and batteries on those. So that's included in that medical supply budget. Additionally, we noticed that there's not an AED at elections or at any of the Post Falls campuses. So I would propose we put 2 AEDs in, one at the elections office and one at in the lobby of Veterans and Department of Licensing. That way we do have at least one on that campus of Post Falls as well. So it's included in there. Under 8215 for janitorial services, we had a little bit of a decrease there just based on the 2-year trend. I think we were over budgeted in that area. So looking at what the contract services are for cleaning there, we were able to reduce there. A large decrease is in 8236 inspections and licensing. This last year we completed a 5-year elevator inspection required by the state, and we don't need that for another 5 years, so we were able to take a significant reduction in that line item. And then in building repairs, we did have a little bit of an increase for bringing on some new generators that we will have to service at the coroner's office, as well as the new justice building. And then we just put a 3% increase for inflation on that budget's a little bit difficult because that's really our unforeseen of when we're doing plumbing repairs, electrical repairs, just all the things that come up in the
So
course.
$5,000, that's not very big generator.
What's that?
At $5,000, that's not very big generator.
No, it's not to buy a generator, it's just to serve it, to put it on the service plan. So the company comes in and tests it and runs it twice a year to make sure everything is functioning the way that it should. So it's not, the generators exist, the coroner's one is existing. We're just basically, now that we have the coroner's office under buildings and grounds, it used to be sheriff's controlled. Now the sheriff's department has totally moved out of that building. We will be responsible for maintaining that generator. And then the new generator on the Justice Building needs to go on that service plan. So it's not purchasing, it is just maintaining and servicing the generator. So with that makes that budget fairly flat. Our A budget requests are for an additional FTE called the maintenance assistant. Essentially, that's a custodian. We will need that for bringing on the 57,000 square feet of the new Justice Building that we need to clean. And then we're also requesting an additional part-time senior maintenance operator. This is an opportunity with one of our senior staff that is retiring in June, is interested in coming on at a part-time position. So, given the fact that we are bringing on the new Justice Building, there'll be additional maintenance throughout the years there. We now have the coroner's office in our department, as well as factoring in the idea of turnover. Currently, we'll have, after this person retires, we'll have one person with 3 years of experience in our department. Everybody else will be less than 1 year. And so increasing this FTE will help with training. It will help with covering vacations, sick leave, snow plowing, because this person will be the only person that has ever plowed in the county as well, so other than myself now. So we would request consideration to bring on this person into a part-time position. He would retire in June, would like to take 3 months off, and then the start of the fiscal year would be an ideal time for him to come back under a part-time position. So it would be a lower cost way for us to bring on that additional help that we could significantly use.
Find another one.
Benefits on that. So.
Find another one.
What's that?
Find another one.
Yeah. And then we'll replace those senior positions that are leaving.
So how many full-time and then how many part-time will you have theoretically October 1?
So we have 4 full-time senior maintenance operators, 1 part-time currently, and then that would increase it to 2 part-time.
Okay.
I have a question with respect to the Justice Center opening up and cutting back on your janitorial supplies. Wouldn't you be increasing that?
No, I feel like I took a hard look at that. I feel like we were over budgeted on it.
Okay.
I do believe I'm comfortable with cutting that back. I believe we're okay on that.
Okay.
So in that line, the 5,500 medical, would you have any savings in that line item where you could do the AEDs like now and not?
We'll have to look at, so I'm basically building the kind of the orders for that right now. So I'm not able to answer that today, potentially, as we get a little bit closer.
Okay.
Are you suggesting kind of like what we just did with IT?
Yes.
Yeah, because there's no point in that waiting.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a life-saving equipment.
Yep.
Right.
Agreed.
So if you can find it, and if you can't find it in your budget, then I would still argue that we probably should do it sooner than later.
Okay.
Yes, liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then our C budget requests, we actually briefed this with you last week when we were talking about fund balance. So we have 5 different projects that we are looking at this year. So I'll just go over those kind of in order. Replacing the south side windows on the old Justice Building. If you take a look at those windows, they have completely failed. You can see moisture in between the panes on those. Those range from 25 to 40 years old windows, as well as 3 windows on the old courthouse on the west side at the security entrance, those have failed as well.
Are any of those broken?
They're not broken, but the seals are broken. So they're broken in the way that they're allowing moisture, and so you see that.
Is that going to cause a lot of damage? Can we push it off a few days?
A few days?
A couple of years? Because we're doing a lot of big projects over here, so.
We are doing a lot of big projects. I do think that it would, with the new Justice Building going in, it would be worth doing a couple things on that old Justice Building to bring it to a point where it ties it in, because the next line item is to paint the old Justice Building. So I think it would be worth replacing those south side windows and then painting the old Justice Building. It would be painted in a color scheme that would match the new Justice Building.
Cost projection?
$26,000 on that, $75,000 for windows. And that was included in the numbers that we were talking about last week in the fund balance meeting that we were kind of talking about dumping money into those pots for the 5-year plan. The third thing that I have in there is asphalt seal coating. That is something that we do every 3 years, so that cycle is up. And so we would be going through basically every parking lot, sealing cracks with the hot tar, putting the asphalt seal down, and then restriping all of the parking lots. Elevator rehab. When they did the 5-year plan, they noted that many of our elevators have obsolete controls, meaning that if an elevator goes down, it is likely not repairable in a timely manner. And so in going through, while they are, when I say they're obsolete, they can be overhauled and completely rebuilt. And so they have provided quotes then to basically rebuild all 4 of the elevators that we have across the campus. So that is 911, the old courthouse, JDC, and the administration building. So those are included in there. And then the final thing is to, with the old Justice Building and the HVAC project that we have going on the old Justice Building, to tie in the train control system so that we are running the entire building off of one control system for HVAC controls.
Questions?
I do have one. When are the stairs on the east side of the building due for any rehab? One of them is pretty chewed up.
On the east side of?
Outside the treasurer's door.
Outside treasurer's, yes. So I have quotes on that as well, and I had originally intended to put it into this budget. 2 years ago, there was a line item approved for concrete repairs throughout the county, and it was basically to kind of reseal coat everything. That company is out of business and basically said, we are not able to do your work. There was $59,000 allocated, and that's already sitting in the 5-year plan approved. And the quotes I have are right around $50,000. So that is something I will be bringing to you in the next couple of weeks for approval, and we will likely be doing that this summer.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then, as a reminder, all the capital requests Jeff presented could be funded with the 5-year plan fund balance, so they wouldn't be an impact. They wouldn't come from property tax. So that's something we'll discuss further in our capital meeting in June.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Well, without objection, we'll proceed to the next step.
Okay, thank you.
So, thank you. Okay, on to the next item is the airport, but I think we're still waiting.
Oh, I think she's here.
Well,
Kim's here.
Kim, you're going to do the full presentation? Yes. Okay. Yep, we'll go into FY26 budget review of the airport. And we have Kim Stevenson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Would you like me to start with revenues or expenses?
Start with what, I'm sorry?
Revenues or expenses?
We'll go with revenues first.
Okay, perfect. So our revenues for FY26, currently we're budgeting 2.323335, 2.3 million essentially in revenue, which is a 7% increase. Rents and leases have gone over 1.5 million. That's our most dependable and stable source of revenue compared to the rest of our fees. And we budgeted a slight increase to fuel flowage as well.
And real quick, your revenue estimate, that's including the new fee structure?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, we included the 12-month tower fee, which is $10 per aircraft per landing, and then the 4% increase to our CPI adjustment to our rents and leases.
Okay.
So unless you have questions about revenue, that's pretty much the extent of what we did. Everything else is staying status quo for the most part.
The only thing that kind of stands out is that we're charging, is it a $5 or $10? I can't remember, for the tower fee?
It's $10
And that's per flight.
per landing, per aircraft, correct?
Okay.
And
so-
not including base tech, aircraft, military,
Bombers.
historical.
So what was the estimate on that revenue, just out of curiosity?
I put it in at 35,200 because even though we're doing it year-round, the bulk of those, it won't double, obviously, because we have fewer flights in the winter than we have during the summer. So I think I added it. I think I did like a half increase on it or something, half yeah.
Okay, but I thought we wanted that to be budget neutral as far as the expense goes.
Oh, there's no way that we could make that budget neutral
Yeah.
compared to the tower. It's merely a support fee, and we don't want to make it too high that people don't want to land here, but just enough to help offset some of those expenses. And we're still kind of testing the waters with it. It might, we might be able to absorb more and raise that fee in coming years. But since it's still kind of new, we just want to keep it at the $10 and then expand the time frame that we're invoicing it.
But the overhead is significant, though, as far as an increase on that.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's a
Yes.
specialized, obviously, staff person.
That is
so.
true.
Okay. Okay. We can go on to expenses.
Okay. So for the airport fund, our A budget, we're budgeting the same amount as we did last year. We do have 2 positions that we're looking to reclass and be evaluated. And because some of that has been allocated since the beginning of FY25, we're expecting a slight budget savings in our A budget. But no new personnel and no other increases to our A budget.
And that request is coming before us on May 15th, I think.
I hope so, yes. Mhm. Okay, in terms of our B budget, again, not a lot of change. We did get those trucks approved yesterday, and we're appreciative of that. And because of that, we're expecting to have some money that we can possibly move around and just hone in on our B budget expenses and try and be as accurate as possible. So we do have some shifting that we're doing between line items in there. But we're expecting to be able to take some of that vehicle maintenance expense and move that around to some other places where it's needed. In terms of non-capital requests, we are taking, there are 3 tough books currently in vehicles at our office. The airport director and the duty managers have tough books. And with the new trucks, we would like to get 4 more tough books for the op specialists. Having them mobile and being able to do things on the field is so much better. And a lot of the apps that we use are better on a computer than on a tablet. So in terms of Verizon for that, we have 4 lines, so we should see no increase in telephone. We'll just swap the tablets for the tough books.
Are the tablets at their end of their useful life? When do those run out, the tablets?
I apologize, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, but I mean, like, we didn't get them last year. They're a few years old.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So again, not a lot of changes. We are budgeting a $239 decrease to our overall B budget savings. So we're putting the budget, not the B budget, I'm sorry, the overall expense budget at $2,323,335. With that mid-year truck purchase and the fund balance moving, we are requesting nothing for our C budget for next year.
Brandy, did you want to add something?
Oh, I just, Kim, if you don't have this number, that's okay. What is total airport fund budgeted revenues and budgeted expenses? So that we know how much we'll use in fund balance next year to make up the difference.
So we are very close this year. We're anticipating a very nominal use of fund balance to cover expenses. So our revenue budget is $2,272,863. So that leaves $50,472 to potentially be covered by fund balance.
Okay, so your expenses are 50,000 higher?
Right,
Okay.
at this point in time, yeah.
Okay.
Unless our revenues happen to come in higher, which is always possible.
Okay. And how much is the annual tower contract again?
The annual tower contract next year will reset at $544,000. And we did budget a 5% increase to that based on the contract that just went through. We'll be restarting in 11 months, and it's really kind of hard to tell where we'll wind up with that increase, but we did put an increase in.
Yeah, once it's in the system and we review it, I'll have more questions, but
Sure.
Those are just my questions for now.
Questions, comments? No. Well, without objection, oh, did you have something else?
I have sewer fund.
Oh, yeah, let's cover that.
The glorious sewer.
Exactly. Fund 301, for our revenues in Fund 301, we are anticipating a budget of $290,673, which is just a 0.15% change. We will be adding folks in to the sewer, but any new sewer costs will be determined upon how quickly they get their hangars built. It could be more than that, but it's really kind of hard to say. I think we're looking at 6 builds this year. So yeah, we're right in the ballpark there pretty much, unless somebody decides to add sewer to an existing hangar, which people have been doing. So not a whole lot of revenue increase on the sewer side. And then for the expenses on the sewer, it is only B and C budget. There's no personnel there. I added a small increase, again, that $395 to the B budget, not knowing for sure where we're going to be with HARBs in terms of expenses from that side. And so we are collecting enough to cover the B budget expenses for that. And as far as C budget goes, we have $228,873 in our C budget that if we don't get Miles Lift Station repaired this year, we're still working on getting quotes for that and who we would get those quotes from. And we would carry that forward at the end of the fiscal year because we will need to make those upgrades to the Miles Lift Station eventually.
All right, anything else?
No, just that it's in a restricted fund and it'll just be carried forward. So this isn't really necessarily a new $228,000. It's what we're trying to get done this year.
Right, yeah, we've been working on it for a couple of years now.
Maybe more.
Oh, I hope not.
Well,
Nice to get it fixed.
without objection, go to the next step.
Okay,
So, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, next up, item 8, FY26 budget review with the BOCC and Leanna Kaiser.
Morning.
You gotta be tough on those guys.
We have several budgets to go over with the BOCC. In your binders, the black tabs, the one that says BOCC office, that's the one we'll do first. If you're looking in the one weekly folder, it's the Fund 10.1.001. Not sure which one you're looking at, and you're probably looking in your book.
Yeah, we're looking.
Okay, just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay, so the BOCC office is our actual office. We have an overall decrease of $2,300. The majority of that is because we're not onboarding any new commissioners, and we're also decreasing travel expenses for next year, as Commissioner Everline won't be traveling as much as we had budgeted him for this current year. So we will have an overall decrease of $2,300.
Okay, questions?
On that? Pretty straightforward.
You're going in the right direction.
Okay. Okay, the next budget is the general fund. So the BOCC general fund, if you're looking in your binder, it's the black tab that says general fund. Your books are very big. There's a lot of pages. On this one, we have a small portion of personnel budget in here, and this is, that's why the budget is $59,000. It looks very small. That is just a portion from HR. They are reducing the temp pool by $10,000, and they're also decreasing the employee referral program by $10,000. So those are the decreases there. They're also increasing service awards by $1,700. So that's the overall decrease of $18,300 in personnel expenses. And you'll see that on the summary page, on that first page. Any questions on the personnel portion?
Any questions? No? Okay.
Okay, so the B budget portion, there is an overall decrease of $66,500. However, it looks a little deceiving because there is a grant pass-through from FY25 that will not be in there for 26, so it's a little bit deceiving. There's actually a $92,000 increase if we take that pass-through out. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that. Do you see where we are, Commissioner Everline?
Pardon?
Do you see where we are? We're on this page. I know there's a lot of pages.
Right here.
Yes. Okay. So the other decreases would be the Tischler-Bice. We completed the impact fee study, so we have a reduction of $10,000. We also completed a donation to the NACO fund. We had a 2-year contribution of about $3,900, so we won't have that for next year. Our external auditor, Bailey, we have an increase of about $15,000 for that for FY26. The Justice Building expansion, the utilities will be increasing by about $48,000 was the estimate. I worked with Jeff Voller and we pretty much estimated those expenses. Water, sewer, garbage would increase about $1,800. So that kind of solidifies those increases. Moving on to the community contributions. So it's the spreadsheet that looks like this in your binder. Kind of has a spreadsheet.
I'm not seeing it in here.
You don't have it in your binder? There's oh, it's probably in your, yeah, it looks just like that.
Well, I just have 2 pages.
Okay, so that's
under
the
BOCC.
office, and we're on the general fund.
So
that's the big.
all right. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. So on this,
We have a couple of organizations that have asked for some increases. First of all is the Animal Damage Control Board.
Oh.
Okay, I'm sorry, the Board of Community Guardian, they had requested a $5,000 increase from $25,000 to $30,000 for next year. We also have an increase for the University of Idaho Extension Program. They came and gave a presentation and had requested about $8,800 increase. Am I going too fast? Okay. And then we had the request, and I believe we had a presentation from the Rathdrum Westwood Museum. That was the jail. Remember the old Kootenai County Jail? They had the roof repairs, and they had come and requested some money to help pay for that. That was the $30,000 that they needed to repair the roof, or replace a portion of their roof. So they had come forward and asked for some money. I spoke to Courtney Beebe with the Historic Preservation Commission and just tried to get an update from her on what the status was on that, and she said that the Rathdrum Museum doesn't have an avenue through the city of Rathdrum, and they don't have a Historic Preservation Commission, so they don't have an avenue to collect any funding through them. The State Preservation Office doesn't give any money for repairs also, so they don't really have an avenue. They asked me to pass that along to you. They did have a grant for about $42,000. They had $10,000 to cover it, which left them with about the $32,000 that they were looking for. So they were asking for just any assistance.
And did the city offer any?
The city of Rathdrum?
Mm-hmm.
According to Courtney, she said the city has nothing to offer them. Rathdrum, they don't have a historic preservation commission, and they don't have any city funds.
Okay.
So, and we don't have to make that decision today. If you want to put it on the list of things to discuss during budget deliberations. It is included in our budget, so if you decide you don't want to include it, we can take it out. But I just thought I'd give you an update on that. And then the last thing for our, we had a non-capital request reduction because last year we did some audio-video upgrades in here, so that contributed to the decrease for this year. We don't have that for this year. And then we have a capital request, and that's because of the GASB rule. The GASB 96 lease had to be moved from our B budget to our capital budget, so that's why there's a capital item in the general fund, which we hadn't had prior, but we will going forward because of the new GASB rule.
It says negative 1,800.
That's the decrease. So
okay.
It was in our B budget last year, and
Gotcha.
now it's moved to our C budget, but in addition to moving to our C budget, it also decreased because Jonathan actually negotiated a better contract for us.
Okay.
That was a lot.
So
Fast pace. Any questions on that one?
Questions?
Not on that one.
Questions overall?
I just have a concern about keeping the roof in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because how do we say no to the next nonprofit who is in dire straits?
Well, I think it's, in this particular situation, we're talking about the county jail. I guess the original county jail, right?
Yes.
So I don't see it as a nonprofit issue as much as it's a historic building. And I mean, my preference is that all other options should be exhausted before they come to the Board of County Commissioners. But this is, I would argue, a historic building that it has to do with the county. And, we just have to decide if that's something that we want to contribute toward. I mean, so I don't see it as a nonprofit coming to us with a hat in hand saying, we're not managing our operation correctly. I mean, I would argue that they're not collecting a fee like they should be or could be. I think they just have like a tip jar somewhere,
Right. And I believe they're putting in about $10,000, what they had. So.
Yeah, but they're not actively out really trying to promote this thing and collect fees and you know, like a museum.
Right.
And so I think that's where part of the issue is. They get, you know, if you're not capturing revenue to cover the cost of maintaining the structure, you know, even we have to start to ask, well, that just means we're setting ourselves up in the future again for being the de facto bank account to take care of that building.
Do you want me to leave it in for now? Do you want me to? I'll just leave it and you can discuss it.
Do either of you have a?
It's in the budget now, so we can earmark it for something to discuss during deliberations or.
It wouldn't be very high on my agenda. And it's like I had an old pickup one time and it ran. And sometimes I just turn it around the block, you know, because it was neat. But it was just, you know, it was falling apart. And so I abandoned the old pickup. And sometimes it's not worth fixing.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, in this particular situation, it's just a matter of do we want to invest and preserve the history of this community? And, you know, I totally agree with you on the idea of the pickup truck. But just coming from a place where there are lots of very old buildings, I appreciate the fact that, you know, some of them have been preserved and you can actually see them. I mean, down the street where I used to live was the church where George Washington went to, and it was nice to be able to walk into that church and have it maintained and kind of see what it was like for the, you know, for him and others of that era to attend that church. So it's just really a question of whether or not we want to preserve.
Yeah. George Washington, and there's a whole bunch of those guys back there.
Yeah. So I guess we have to figure out who may have been famous that spent time in the Kootenai County Jail back in the 1800s. Then maybe that'll be a more interesting story to get contributions for. Commissioner Duncan, your thoughts on this? Do you want to take it off? You want to keep it?
Let's keep it in there for the time being. See what we come up with, because you know, there's going to be some stuff that we're going to have to cut.
I'm okay with that, but I don't believe this is a situation of opening the door for
Other historic buildings that need help?
well, you know, if that's the case, then we'll have to start asking, you know, what are they doing to manage these things properly? And if they're not doing a good job, maybe they shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, that's how you figure things out.
Yeah. So, all right, well, I guess you have direction
Okay, we'll leave it for now.
for now.
We can discuss it during deliberations and if necessary. So that was it for the general fund. Did you have any questions on that? Okay. So now in your book, if you have your book, go to the green tabs, and these will be in order.
The green tabs?
Green tabs at the back,
Yeah.
or after the black ones.
After veterans.
Starts with the aquifer, so it should say APD. That's where we'll start, and we'll go through. There's 7 of them.
Yeah, you want to go all the way in the back.
Pardon?
All the way in the back. It's a little discombobulated here.
Discombobulated, is that a technical term?
It is. I'm trying to figure out. It's not linear. I think we're there.
Are you ready? Okay.
Yes.
So this is the Aquifer Protection District. I do their budget for them. They presented to you their budget. They will have a public hearing on this after they presented to you, and you gave them guidance to go ahead and go forward. So they presented, they will have an increase in expenditures of $228,000. They also expect to use about $320,000 fund balance to offset that increase. So I won't go into all the details. The highlights are on that summary page there. If you have any questions, you can ask me or we can ask Aquifer again, but I think they were pretty clear on their budget. Okay, the next one is, if you turn to the next green tab in your book, it should be in order, to the CASA. This is the court-appointed special advocate's attorney that you actually approved the contract for this yesterday in the business meeting. So it is included in the budget. And that contract was for $105,000 for Schwartz Law to continue as our CASA attorney. The fund itself has actually decreased about by $6,000 because we had budgeted for FY25 for CASA conflict attorneys, which we don't have to budget for anymore. So we reduced that by $6,000 for FY26. The next tab is the health district. And this is the decrease of $19,000. And this is due to a fluctuation in population and valuation. Based on their calculations, the overall contributions to from the counties is the same, but the Kootenai County portion has decreased because of the fluctuation. So I've entered in the new budget amount, which is $1,659,000. That's what we'll pay them. We pay quarterly to the Panhandle Health District.
Mm-hmm.
Questions? Okay. So the next tab is the Historic Preservation Commission. I also do their budgets for them, and their budget has increased because they have a lot of expenses and a lot of new projects and whatnot that they want to do next year. However, they want to use their fund balance to offset most of these projects that they'll be doing, which includes the 100th anniversary of the courthouse, along with some historical markers that they want to put out around the community. And they also want to, which I encourage them to come forward to the commissioners and present their ideas for a photo project that they want to install in the new Justice Building. They've taken a tour of the building and located some areas in the new building that they'd like to display some historical photos. So they're budgeting $5,000 for this project.
And is that a FY25 project? Is that, or you're going for it's 26?
26. It's
Okay.
an FY26 project. Okay. Okay.
Does this Historic Society, do they, are they part of the Rathdrum Jail?
They are not. This is the Kootenai County Historic Preservation Commission, which is separate from the Rathdrum City Museum.
And they don't work together?
They are just now kind of collaborating on this project. I believe our Historic Preservation Commission is helping them try to find some funding.
I think that'd be a good idea to tag on to that because it'll just lend credibility and different
Yeah,
venues.
and that was when I was speaking earlier about Courtney Beebe giving some information and updates. She's with our Historic Preservation Commission, and she's assisting them trying to find some state funding. And she said there was a mitigation fund that possibly they could use for the roof repair. So, yeah, so they're trying to kind of work together, get some.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
It might help them get going.
So the next fund is the Justice Fund. It's the next tab in your book, and that is decreasing $12,500 because we are not paying for the IAC litigation fund. We pay it every other year, and so we don't pay it in 26. We pay it every odd year. So our budget decreases for next year. The year after, it will go up. It's pretty standard. Okay, then the next one is the public defender budget. So we don't have a public defender's office anymore. However, we do have a public defender budget. And that's because the state is requiring that we pay for the lease and utilities, janitorial, and repairs and maintenance for the leased facility. So we are budgeting for those. Yesterday, you approved the contract for the janitorial contract in that building. That's when we reduced from 5 days a week to 3 days a week to try to cut some costs where we could find it. And when you look at the summary page for the public defender, you can see that there's a capital request. That's also a new GASB rule requiring us to move it from the B budget to the capital C budget. So the lease is considered a capital expense now, and there is an increase because it's a graduated lease. So for 9 months, it'll be at one rate, and then it bumps up for a portion of the year.
It's an unusual change, it seems like.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's public defender budget. And then the last one is the tourism budget. And this is the one that requires, per statute, this is the pass-through account where we collect the revenue from the racing facility over in Post Falls. And then we then distribute the money back to the Post Falls Chamber to support tourism. And by statute, we're required to do this. So there's no change in the budget. It's a very minimal amount. So like I said, it's just a pass-through. Questions on any of those?
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Nope.
Well, hearing none, without objection, we'll proceed to the next step there.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, item 9, FY26 budget review for adult misdemeanor probation.
How you guys doing
And
today?
we got Keith Hutchinson here.
Inspector Hutchinson, Linnell Smith is admin supervisor. Did you guys want to start with revenues, or where did you guys want to start with? We're going to
Start with revenues.
start with revenues? Okay. Revenues, what we did is we've been projecting 265,000 a year, but we've been exceeding that every year. So we're going to bump it up a little bit this year because we're exceeding it consistently. Also, the reason for that is we're staying steady with all of our employees and staying fully staffed. Everybody's becoming a little bit more understanding of how the programs work and stuff like that.
Except for somebody that's leaving.
Oh, I'm sorry. My last one here, guys. And so that's probably the biggest reason why is the employees have just really stepped up, and the POs have stepped up and really brought the monies in that need to be brought in and are watching their people and bringing the monies in. So we're going to increase that, probably about 10% to be on the safe side and stuff. So that's where we're at on revenues.
Okay. Questions?
Which one's in your book first? Is it the K-9 one or the operation one?
Operations.
Operation one? Okay. Just go right to the summary sheet, so we'll stay right on the summary sheet. Summary sheet, if we can start at the non-capital section there. Currently, our tasers that we have are expired, can't be fixed, we can't find any more. So we have to go into a 5-year contract with them. It's the same as the Sheriff's Department to update our tasers to bring us where we have some non-lethal available with us on our belts. This is one thing that we have to have on our persons as we go out and deploy in the field and stuff like that. That is $13,518 for the next 5 years. Next one's on the list is radios. Our radios are coming at the end of the due. I originally got them approximately 8 years off a grant 8 years ago. Right now, the company that sold them to us is out of business. The guy who reprograms them is retired. This brings us to what the countywide, what they're using with the Motorola systems. So we can get them programmed here, get them fixed through here. I also have applied for a grant the last 2 years and have been denied each year, not being able to get the grant the last 2 years, so that's why I'm bringing it forward this year. Also attached to that is an extra battery, and talking to Colin, it says the batteries are very hard to get, so we're buying an extra battery with the radios.
Why are the batteries so hard to get? Just availability?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That was the main reason why.
Obsolescence. Obsolescence.
No, it's just availability of them is the really key because of what's going on.
Demand.
With everything, the batteries, and getting them here. And then these batteries, you plug them in, unplug them, turn them on, turn them off, and unplug them. It creates a memory in them sometimes, and the battery for a period of time just wears down. So you have to get new batteries for them. So that would just give us spare batteries for the process. Any questions on any of those three things?
It seems like, God, the radios are expensive.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's estimates in there. Yeah, this is the county purchasing. This is at the thing. We didn't buy anything extravagant. We got ones that are just the basics. We didn't buy the triple band ones or anything like that. It's just these are the basic ones. Yes, radios are about $5,900 a piece.
Okay. Okay, I'm looking at the tasers. Okay.
That's right
And
here.
the tasers,
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Just nothing we can
No, makes sense.
Then if we go up top there, we have also listed in the B budget, the LSIR. LSIR is the threat assessment that has to be done on every probationer coming in the door. What I'd like to do, because when this was put together was, with the last few months, I do have, I think, some funds this year that I can probably get this purchase done in this year's budget. But that's why I was bringing it forward, because if I take that out of there, it will drop down my, overall ask for, coming this year in the B budget, to see if I can bring that forward in the next couple of weeks in a business meeting to purchase the uses. We're averaging about 400 uses. It's $12.50 per use. So it gives us about 400 uses, and we're averaging, mid-year, because we just went to the system in September of last year, and we're sitting right around the 210 to 205 mark. But we bought 500, I think it was, total we bought. And with that, we have like 100 plus or minus, because you just don't know when people are coming in and how the courts are going to sentence them. So that gives you a plus or minus as you go into the next fiscal year. If that would be okay, then we can take that out of this request. We're just looking for feedback on that.
Is that just a one-time cost then, and then you have the $725 as the yearly license?
No, it's a continuous cost, because it's $12.50 per use. For the use, it's going to be $5,000 a year.
Okay, but you'll have to come to us next spring halfway and get,
It'll carry us over all the way, the whole fiscal year. This will carry us until next fiscal year.
so if you pay for it now, it will get us through
Yes.
September 30th of '26.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll be whole all next year. You can be in next year's budget then.
Anything else? No? Commissioner Eberline? No? All right.
I'll do that then. I'll get that set up on the business meeting with you guys. And then, of course, there's no A request here. The A request, it was the bonuses that we sent over to Brandy, and I think Brandy's going to send those through, the bonuses thing.
Yeah, you submitted a request for them, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those will get discussed at the personnel meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's been sent through on the A side of it. There is no C request on the operation.
Okay. Anything else?
K-9?
No, just K-9 after that.
Okay.
The K-9 budget, if you go to the operation sheet again, the spreadsheet that we got here to access it. If you look at the non-capital request is the purchase of another detection dog. Our current detection dog is coming up on 12 years old. It's, next year, so it's gonna be a time to process them out. The purchase of a dog is $9,900. To do to go get them, per diem and stuff is $7,000. So the change in the budget, if you add those together, is about, it's an additional $12,870. We cut some other areas to try to make all that work in there. So the additional is $12,000. For fiscal year, we're asking for $26,000. So it's an additional $12,870. I think that's an outstanding cost. And then on top of that, then we had the fund balance funds that we're bringing forward that we had for donations, which is $7,700.
700
1,000.
or 7,000?
7,000.
Okay.
$7,700 we have available to use towards that also.
So that leads to, if I'm reading this correctly, 7,950 request for the dog after the donation is used.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the training will be done in-house. Currently, Mark Severance is an instructor evaluator for international and state of Idaho. So with us doing our stuff in-house and everything else, we're going to save probably $15,000 to $20,000 by just doing it in-house. You guys saw with the sheriff's department dogs. He does the detection. He just completed the city of Coeur d'Alene's dogs. So that's a huge saving to us. So we're doing it in-house. This is purchase the dog, to go get the dog and bring them back is what mostly this all is.
Any comments, questions?
This is just going to replace Vulcan.
Yes.
Okay,
it's taking our time doing it. We're not going to rush it. We're going to request it. The dog's going to be searched out. It's going to be located. We're going to work with 2 different vendors and see what it comes up with.
Well, without objection, let's proceed to the next step.
Okay.
Thank you. Next up, item 10, FY26 budget review. We have Reprographics, but
They're not.
Sorry, Leanna just said that to skip Reprographics.
okay.
So probably Nick? Parks and
Yeah,
Waterways?
let's do Parks and Waterways.
And then before lunch.
Director Snyder, you've been here for a couple of minutes. So
Okay,
we're glad to be able to work you in here.
I was pleased to see all the budgets, and now I know where to ask, so that's great.
Okay.
Well, Commissioners, since we already had the opportunity to meet with individually, as well as I met with Director Falcon and her team already, I've already advanced my budget, so it has been submitted. I'd like to just cover the highlights unless the Commissioners want to drill in. First thing I'd like to start with your permission, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, absolutely.
is the A budget. So if I could draw your attention to the screen there, Jonathan's been kind enough to put that up. And it's because our A budget does contemplate the addition of a park ranger. And Commissioner, since I've served the county since 2006, Parks, Waterways, Noxious Weeds, Snow Groomer has decreased full-time positions and part-time positions over the years. However, we've reached a point where our field staff, i.e. our park rangers, can't become any more efficient. Quite frankly, we are running them as hard as we can ask. In addition to that, their ability to take a day off or even call in sick during those peak, particularly the peak season months, has reached a point where it's just no longer tenable. So with that said, Commissioners, you can see going back all the way to 2006, we had a population of 94,000 people. And according to the data that we were able to take a look at, we've jumped up to 178. That's an 89% increase in our population. Not to mention, I can't put a number to it, but we all live here and we do understand the impacts of that peak season use here in Kootenai County, i.e. The people coming in to visit and enjoy our area. Again, I don't have the numbers, but we have heard rumblings from other recreation agencies in the state to where it is possible we're seeing anywhere from 300,000 to 400,000 people specifically to boating related trail use and park use, and we think that's probably conservative. So you can add that to the number of people that my 5-person park staff is trying to manage across 21 boat launches, 10 parks, and 3 different trail systems. It's a lot. We are also spread out from Athol to Worley to Cataldo to the state line. They're incredibly mobile, and again, trying to maintain that many customers, and those problems that come along with that can be a challenge for those 5 people. Another factor is it used to take 45 minutes to drive from Athol, as you know, down to Sunup, located on Lake Coeur d'Alene, and you could do that fairly easily. Those days are gone. It is very difficult to get staff from the north end of the county to the south end or east and west, whatever the case may be, in the same time frame that we were able to do certainly back in 2006. So I won't bore you with all the factors, but the nuts and bolts of it is that we are as efficient as we can get, and we are no longer able to provide the same level of service with the same amount of staff as we were some years ago, particularly post-COVID. So again, saving all the details, I think this board understands all those things. And Jonathan, if you jump to that next slide. And the slide before you, Commissioners, was done by the National Recreation and Parks Association. And while it does contemplate many cities, counties are involved in, cities typically do require a higher number of employees to take care of a park facility just because of there's more amenities typically in a city park than there is a county facility. But as you can see, Commissioners, if I draw your attention to the population of the 100 to 250,000 in orange, you can see that the lower quartile there is what, Brandy, can you see it, 46.5 employees? Does that look about, 61. And that lower quartile of 100 to 250,000 population, I think it's 61 employees. We have 8. And so adding an additional employee we think is certainly reasonable given what is commensurate with other agencies. And again, do keep in mind, Commissioners, we're a little unique. We don't mean to compare apples to apples in that a lot of our facilities are marine facilities, so we don't have a lot of, again, the upland responsibilities for playground equipment, and we do have that, but not at the same level. So I've done my best to give you good data, but Kootenai County certainly does not need to compare to those exactly, but it gives you a depiction of a population of 100 to 250,000 people and kind of where we sit in that in terms of the number of staff that other agencies would typically have. So I think that that alone shows the efficiency of Parks and Waterways' ability to maintain all of these facilities, all the properties that are not necessarily parks, i.e. the levee at Hayden, the levee in Cataldo, the cemeteries, all with those same amount of people again. So we would ask that the Commissioners take a hard look at this. If it's possible to fund it, we appreciate it. Regardless, we'll continue to maintain those properties to the best of our ability. But again, Commissioners, it's becoming very difficult to cover the same terrain, provide the same level of service with the challenges that I just explained. So that's sort of the heavy lift of our budget this year.
Well, thank you. As usual, you provide an excellent presentation to illustrate the challenges and kind of show us why you have requests as opposed to telling us. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next item I'd like to touch on is our B budget. And while we just about came in flat or just under, the Commissioners were good enough, and we want to thank you. It was an exceptionally good decision to purchase the land at the airport and take Parks and Waterways out of that very expensive lease. And we would have came in flat, but we do have some additional expenses for utilities for that new building. And so our total overall B budget is going to come in at $4,138 thereabouts over last year. And that is, we will need some funding to pay the sewer, water, and electricity on that new facility that we obtained from the airport. So that's our total B budget increase, again, between all the departments at just over $4,000. So if there's any questions on that.
No questions.
Very well. And then we find ourselves at our capital budget. So we have just a couple items there. And that is, we are going to do a pour-in-place concrete boat launch project during low water. And we'll probably start it in 25, but we'll need to pay the bill in 26. We typically kick it off around October when the water's down. And that's, again, going to be at Micah Bay. And we will fund that from a public access account and the boat launch user fees. So no impact to the general fund. It's restricted dollars, Commissioners. The next project is at Upper Twin. We will replace the dock system with a fixed pier system that should last a very long time, both from steel, concrete decking. The ice movement at Upper Twin is such that it just destroys the docks and piling system. We're throwing a lot of money at that, so we'd like to solve that problem. And again, that will come from boat launch user fees, so no impact to the general fund. If you're not a boater, you won't be paying that fee. Lastly, there's a group down around the Black Rock area. There's a little, I'm not going to call it a launch, but it's public access. It's owned by Worley Highway District. There's a group of people that would like to build a launch. It's not a county project, But we would like to contribute $5,000 toward that overall endeavor for the benefit of the boaters. And Worley Highway District would be the permit agency for that, but we will facilitate and support that should the board think that's a worthy endeavor. So I'm working with the Highway District to see if we can bring that all together. And lastly, our revenue, and I'd like Brandy to maybe weigh in a little bit, see if she has any concerns about revenue. But the Board of County Commissioners might recall that the Waterways Advisory Board made a recommendation to increase fees, and the board was wise enough to make that change. We do that every 4 to 5 years. It's now would be in effect. So we will start to see those revenues in boat launch, again, user fees come in to help cover some of these costs. But our fund balances to date are pretty decent. And I would like to make a comment about snow groomer, commissioners. We do have a $3,000 decrease in our B budget in snow groomer. I will tell you that I do have some concerns about those revenues long-term in snow groomer. We've seen a trend dropping, and it's not unique to Kootenai County. It's actually nationwide. Snowmobiles are very expensive. Our snow totals have been low. The commissioners are aware of some of this, but we will mind that store. We will adjust our operations based on revenues, but I did want the board to be aware that the last few years have been pretty tough. So with that said, Brandy, do you have any comments on our revenues?
For the snowmobile program?
Any of the programs?
We've just discussed that long-term, the scale of operations needs to be funded by the snowmobile revenues, or we will have to tax for those operations, and that's just something that the board is going to have to be aware of, you know, what level of operations you want provided from that program. Does that make sense, Nick?
It absolutely does. And again, commissioners, we can operate within that budget, but we will not be able to provide the same level of service as historic if we don't see those revenues increase. And again, that's just predicated on the economy and snowfall. Snowfall has a lot to do.
Mother Nature.
Indeed, Commissioner, and we can't control that. So
No.
regardless of some opinions, the government can control the snow. We cannot. So, but that's what I have. That's a snapshot of our budget for Parks, Waterways, Noxious Weeds, and Snow Groomer Department for fiscal year 26. And last, I'm sorry, I did forget one. I was so focused on our A budget. We have a vehicle replacement, commissioners. And that vehicle, you might recall, we trickled the vehicle down to community development, and we have a replacement request for that vehicle. It would be funded, split in this manner: $15,000 from noxious weeds, $10,000 from parks, $15,000 from boat launch, and also $15,000 from vessel. And so, with the board's support, we would like to get that vehicle replaced in the new fiscal year.
Questions, comments?
Just a clarification that Parks is the only general fund that you just listed. Everything else is coming from restricted funds.
Noxious weeds is a levy similar to parks, so it would be general funds as well. But it is restricted, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Hearing nothing else, without objection, thank you, and proceed to the next step.
Thank you.
That was item 12.
Juvenile probation's here.
Yes, let's go to item 11, FY26 budget review, juvenile probation. And Director Alexander.
Thank you, Commissioners. Brian Alexander for the record. So for juvenile probation for this fiscal year, we have no new personnel requests. Did have the one request to restructure the one supervisor position to an assistant director position. I just received the evaluation at the end of the day yesterday from HR and was able to get that off to Arrow this morning. So hopefully I'll have more numbers on that soon, but there is no onboarding costs, no other costs associated, and preliminary looking at the numbers, and I don't want to put fact numbers out there, but what it looked like is it would be an increase fully loaded about an additional $4,760 for that change in the position. And then you guys got my memo outlining all the reasons for that position change.
Well, I think for that particular situation, I'm happy to discuss that in the HR meeting, but I understand this is your request.
Okay. So we'll just move on to our ops budget. Again, no personnel requests. So our B budget change is actually $1,024 less, so about 8.56% less than last year. And that's just based on the 3-year average of what we're actually spending. And then no capital requests out of our ops budgets. For our tobacco budget, no personnel requests. For the B budget, I do have a slight increase of $1,917, so about a 4.8% increase. And the reason for that is for a non-capital expense to replace our winter and rain jackets that haven't been replaced in about 15 to 17 years. And then again, no C budget requests. Then the lottery budget, again, have a $4,743 decrease, about 12.19%. And again, that's just looking at actual spending versus the last 3 years. And then again, no capital requests out of that budget. Any questions?
Questions, comments? No? No, that's it. Well, without objection, we'll move on to the next step.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, that was item 11. That leaves us with Reprographics and veterans. So should we take a little recess here until get someone to show up?
Well, I'm not sure if we'll break for lunch or if you've got Tom's cell phone number, find out, because these guys are both after lunch.
Yeah, let's, all right, so we'll take a recess for, what?
Till 1 o'clock?
Until 1, okay.